Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigland Network show. My name is Emma Vigland. It's ESVN OT, baby, where we give our picks against the spread for the upcoming NFL weekend. I don't really want to talk about what happened last week, but we have to. It's in my contract. Hello, Bradley. My contract with myself.
What do you want to talk about? That I'm winning?
Yeah, you're winning. He went 2-1 and I went 0-3.
That I trusted playoff god, playoff luminary Mike McCarthy.
That you did. I mean, I really fell victim to a hot take situation there.
I seem to remember
I should have known because I've been crapping on Brady's play all year, and he showed it. He sure as hell showed it.
I seem to remember you placing a bet on Bucks money line during our conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And I was honestly, it was chilling.
Yeah, right. You
did a good job of kind of strong arming me there.
Mm-hmm.
So
it didn't age very well.
I'm rejuvenated. I'm revitalized that I.
You're feeling yourself?
Yeah, that I
confident?
Came back on that one. I was proven right by my confidence in Mike McCarthy.
And I should say that we got our total a little bit wrong last week, so I had to deduct one win from my total as well. So
we're all about transparency.
I just got to be real. Math is not my strong suit, and yet this is what I'm tasked. I've tasked myself with doing. So forgive me for those transgressions. Now, this is not gambling advice, even if I do it on occasion. And oddly, despite my terrible picks, I had like a very good betting weekend. I mean, I did Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown scorer. I think I did, and I parlayed that with Daniel Jones over rushing yards, which hit, I think, by the second half. And some other good things, and live betting on the Jaguars when they were down, that was helpful. But
yeah, that's what I wanted. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, but again, not gambling advice.
Just anecdotes.
Yeah, just a window into my life. We're starting a little bit early today, because Bradley's a busy man. I got something to do a little bit later, so let's get right into it. Not waste any time. Wanted to touch on this because there's massive controversy in the NHL because Ivan Provorov, Philadelphia Flyer, refused to participate in pregame warm-ups before the Flyers game with the Anaheim Ducks. The Flyers had decided that night would be their Pride Night for LGBTQ rights, and the Provorov, I don't know if this was public knowledge before. I guess it was news to me, although I have heard rumblings that Provorov is not well liked in the locker room. And so that makes sense given his stance here. But he said right before they were supposed to go on ice for warm-ups and wear a jersey that had an LGBTQ flag on it. And by the way, that an LG and rainbow, that's not just, it wasn't just aesthetics, right? The ticket donations were supposed to be donated to LGBTQ organizations within the area, and the jerseys were going to be auctioned off after the game to LGBTQ charities. And he said, "Hey, I'm not going to wear this. I'm not coming on the ice. I'm not going to participate in warm-ups." He said it was a religious reason, that he was Russian Orthodox, and just said that it was a religious protest. But the reality is that the Flyers have, more than other NHL organizations, been more proactive and aggressively combating bigotry, especially James Van Riemsdyk and others. I mean, honestly, it's a bright spot in an organization that has mismanaged a lot, that they have some good guys on that team. But they also have a lot of bad guys. Tony D'Angelo, also a bigot and a MAGA Trumper on that team as well. I would guess that given the activism of Van Riemsdyk and Scott Lawton on this front, that Provorov's move here, which he was contractually obligated to do, by the way, and chose just not to, was not met with much. Was probably met with some consternation, as it should have been met.
It's also just kind of interesting what, at least for me, obviously knowing that these are not one-to-one comparisons, just like what reaction certain demonstrations from athletes get from certain people that, already, the likes of Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson are deriding the NHL as like being taken over by like wokeness and like
Right. The NHL.
yeah, and things like that, and like kind of championing Provorov for taking this stance as almost like a crusade for free speech in this country, and like the decisions and actions carried out by guys like Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed received not only a an inequivalent reaction in that regard in terms of some level of demonstration for a social issue, but they actually received outright scorn, derision,
Right.
and they were essentially blackballed from the job that they were doing as a result.
And-
so it's just interesting to see, like,
Yes.
this, like when people want to make this seem as if this stuff is valueless, or that there's only one binary way to see this as having a certain value. It really just depends on the subject matter.
Of course, and we'll be open about that. We support LGBTQ rights. That's why, and acceptance for people, and also I'm supportive of sports leagues demonstrating that acceptance, given the hostility that gay men in particular have been met with in sports, and that's why those flyers that I mentioned, like Van Riemsdyk, have been. They met with a non-binary fan. They've been active in trying to make it a more inclusive space for non-straight white males. And the NHL is so far behind any other league in that regard. And so that's why these moments are even more critical, because one, the league is not very public facing. They like to think of themselves as kind of an old boys club. So everything's very internal. And this is the story that comes out. This is the story that breaks through. And so, honestly, it's just really bad PR, especially because John Tortorella just backed him up essentially in a press conference as head coach.
Yeah, because like frankly, he's also a piece of
Torch is
shit.
an asshole,
So like I just mean like on a beyond this, just a personal level, he is like his thing is being a huge asshole. So
Totally
like,
entertaining, great as like an ESPN personality, and honestly, the hockey should have more of that. Total asshole.
yeah, so like I'm not particularly surprised that he'd be a little bit sharp elbowed about this and defensive of his player, but at the same time, you're exactly right that the NHL, I would say the only league comparable to them in this regard, is the MLB. Like actively almost tries to not have stories like breach any sort of non-hockey circle,
Right.
and yet the ones like this that do breach that to become more of a sports media story, not just an NHL media story, is something that's kind of a blight on the sport, and shows how still even in 2023 how difficult it is for not only progress to be made for team sensibility, but also just like acknowledging like it is nonsense to think, like you just said, in terms of like the advocacy by Van Riemsdyk and by Lawton to like support and host a family with a non-binary kid, like it's just nonsense to think at this point in time that there aren't queer fans. And that there aren't queer fans who will be affected by seeing this, who will be offended by this, who will wonder if they have a place to watch hockey comfortably and not think about that. Like it is a farce, and it has always been a farce that athletics and like enjoying sports, being a fan of sports, participating in sports is beholden or individual to straight people. It's just fucking nonsense.
Yeah, and I just want to say, if you want to come at us and say, "Hey, we're supporting groomers," Provorov, if he is being truthful in this, says that he is Russian Orthodox, religious. There's no bigger groomers in the world than religious organizations, especially the more orthodox and conservative that you get, more insular that you get. They are fanatics, and a lot of sexual abuse happens within those hallowed halls because of like just the insular nature of it, and the fact that there's a lot of repression. So
and listen, like he certainly can say that he's not that he's not comfortable with it because of his religious denomination. That's allowed. He can say that, but he cannot control how people will react to it, how fans will react to it, how players will react to it, how NHL brass reacts to it. That's not up to him. And also, if it is true, like you're saying, that he's contractually obligated, it's also business.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's
free market, baby.
That's what that way. When you breach a contract, no matter what the reason may be, regardless of religious affiliation, you're breaching a contract. So that will also have to be something that's arbitrated as well.
Yeah. And for the Charlie Kirks of the world that are like up in arms because he's being mildly criticized for it, nothing has happened to him, and his head coach backed him up. Nothing has happened.
Right.
To
So
him.
where are the consequences?
And just to buttress my point, wow, I didn't see this. November 2022. Russian Orthodox monk sentenced to 5 years in prison for sexual abuse of a minor. Just saying.
No, that's I mean, that's also like, it's always hard to. I would be curious how Provorov squares his religious piety and adhering to the orthodoxy with the clear breaches that some members of that same orthodoxy participate in on a pretty consistent basis around, not just in Russian Orthodox churches, obviously in that particular story, but just in broad, in Catholicism writ large.
That's really
over the course of its history.
The example I want. I mean, yeah, Catholicism is obviously infamous for it because unlike LGBTQ people, those are actual organizations. Like there's no cabal of gay and trans and
there isn't a gay church,
right? There's not that, and so those are actual institutions that have the capacity to groom and cover things up. With that said, a little bit of news I just wanted to touch on. I mean, one, Byron Leftwich, we'll do a deeper dive into that. It is insane that they fired Byron Leftwich for how horrible Tom Brady's looked. He won a Super Bowl as the offensive coordinator with that team. But
like we said on Monday, like won the Super Bowl with Brady with Bruce Arians as the head coach. Brady had some of the highest quarterback metrics just a season ago when Arians last season as the head coach of the Buccaneers. The difference was not Brady and Byron Leftwich. The difference was Brady, Byron Leftwich, and Todd Bowles.
Yes.
So like, just to like think about which thing doesn't belong there in terms of the offensive success, I wouldn't say it's Byron Leftwich. I'd say it's Todd Bowles.
Yes, and I mean, also Brady's age, which
of course
showed itself.
He's going to be 46 years old this year.
He looks it. I literally was hearing creaky doors when his limbs were moving, his legs when he was trying to roll out. That's part of the issue, is that they can't run the ball because there's no like RPO option. There's no bootlegs. There's nothing like that. So the run game is terrible, and he also is not standing in there to make deep, throws and pass plays. And
on the Athletic Football Show with Robert Mays, and Bob Stern, their Cowboys beat writer, they're just doing a recap of the game. They said something which I think is very, very apropos, which is that to be a quarterback in this league now, like, and especially in the playoffs, you have to be a little bit. You have to be willing to take some risks, and that also, and what that involves is the capacity to take pressure, take hits while on the run or while throwing the ball. And it's just clear Brady does not want to do that.
That horrible red zone interception is indicative of exactly what you say. He got spooked by the pressure. He saw
double clutched, and then threw it up.
Yep.
And that's exactly it. Is like Mahomes. Guys like Mahomes and Allen, and Burrow, even with how much he has sometimes having is needs to evade pressure to make things happen. Part of that, not just them being younger, it's also just their willingness to absorb contact.
Oh, yeah.
Brady is just not willing to do that right now.
Yeah.
And if he wants to consider playing further on, he has to like come to terms with that, because you can't drop back for 60 passes and with that offensive line combination not expect to get pressure or be hit.
I totally agree with you, and people will say, well, what do you expect? He's 45 years old. Well, is he contractually, is he being chained to the football?
Yeah, no,
with
like
ball
the
and chain?
Bucs ownership is not forcing him to play.
Yeah, right. That's what I mean to say. This is completely his choice. He could retire at any time. He has more money than God. The point is that he's choosing to participate and play because of his ego, and clearly does not have the self-awareness to understand that in fact he's hurting this team, and has been. I don't think he'll be back with the Bucs next year. So I don't know why you fire Leftwich, and yet another person who seems to be ousted at the altar of Brady.
Yep.
First Arians, the reports were that he wanted him out. He was gone. Now Leftwich, like I would imagine that there's a lot of eye rolling in the locker room, and I would guess that there's a lot of coaches and friends of someone like a Byron Leftwich. And wasn't Leftwich drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Yeah, I believe he played for both the Bucks and the Jags.
Yeah, or the Steelers he played for as well, and then the Jaguars.
Oh, no, so he was drafted by the Jaguars, but he did play for the Bucks though.
Yeah.
But the thing here also to me is that just from a more like intangible perspective when it comes to Brady as well.
Oh, Chris Sims was taken in that draft. Sorry.
Yeah, wild, right?
He went to the Jaguars, Leftwich. Yeah.
The thing with Brady too, which I think there aren't that many parallels because not many quarterbacks with Tom Brady's cachet, with his pedigree, managed to play 20 years in the league as an NFL quarterback, and until this year at a pretty high level. I think this is what the ultimate cost of this kind of narrative, which I think is not, it's not that it's not true, it's that I think it's also it reinforces itself that Brady is this tireless competitor. He never wants to retire. He thinks he can go until he's 50 years old. Like he never wants, he will never want to stop playing. He wouldn't be comfortable in a cushy media job that maybe Drew Brees or Peyton Manning or somebody is more comfortable with at this point in their life. I can understand that as not only for being true of Brady and also maybe something that Brady wants to aspire to, but there is a cost to that.
Oh no, it's his brand,
and it's a brand. It's also a branding exercise. It might actually be chiefly a branding exercise.
That's exactly it, and that's the artifice is what bothers me. It's what bothers me about Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Although Russell Wilson is corny as hell and artificial, but I feel like he's still corny as hell. He's more authentic than Tom Brady.
I think he comes by that honestly in the sense that I think that's what he thinks he's supposed to be doing.
Right.
Earnestly. Like, I think he's like, this is how a leader functions.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Whereas I think for Tom Brady is like, I am Tom Brady. I think therefore I am Tom Brady.
Exactly. Yeah. But before we actually get to our picks, though, we also should touch on this. Greg Roman leaves the Ravens is how they're essentially framing it, out as the offensive coordinator. Very, very good news. Odd that in back-to-back years coordinators have left that team. I mean, just an observation, like Wink Martindale, mutual parting of ways as well, which to me, it just seems like I feel like the Ravens are a very well-run organization. They know how to handle the media well. Seems like just kind of a cover your ass situation. But John Harbaugh, in answering questions about this move, said that Lamar Jackson will be involved in conversations about where the team goes with an OC. Another thing that I think smells like BS, because this is kind of a new age check mark to get star quarterbacks on board, right? Remember, Aaron Rodgers is going to be more involved in decisions, personnel wise. Tom Brady.
I don't remember the guys. I don't remember. Sorry to interrupt. I don't remember the guy's name, but that there was this so-called quarterback guru guy that kind of came up with Rodgers. He was like he's mid to late 60s, early 70s, came out of retirement to come back and join the Packers staff. And what people kind of thought initially was like the first inkling that Rodgers was going to return to Green Bay last offseason, because they were like, why would this 68-year-old guy who had initially retired return to Green Bay's staff without Rodgers? And then Rodgers came back. But I think sometimes there's a little bit of that wish casting of like, we'll literally like, we'll coordinate this stuff to pamper you.
No pun intended.
To give you exactly what you want, to think that this is your team.
Yeah, I mean, they went way too overboard with it with Rodgers. When now he's like,
look what happened, right?
He's people always talked about his ego being out of control, and I didn't really buy it until like the last 2 years. But on the
Pat McAfee show, he did say that he still thinks that 100% in the right situation, he could be an MVP again. But I guess, I don't know. I guess you have to think that way to an extent.
But I mean, he should be thinking about winning in the
Well,
Super
yeah,
Bowl.
or getting more wide receivers.
Yeah, back to, I mean, okay, not to make this around Aaron Rodgers, but then let 80-year-old Randall Cobb go if,
right,
if
right.
you're serious.
And also what's hilarious before we get back to the Ravens, I just with that in that McAfee segment, he literally was like, yeah, you know, like I have to think about it. Want winning guys on the team like Mercedes Lewis, 17-year vet fullback.
Yeah.
Guys like Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard. I'm like, that's who you're thinking about.
Mercedes Lewis is a tight end, right?
I think he's a fullback. I always thought, or I guess maybe,
tight end.
or maybe he was doing some fullback. Because he doesn't really catch passes anymore.
I mean, how old is he at
he,
this point?
he's like 36.
Oh, 38.
Or 30.
Wow.
Yeah, he's been playing for 17 years.
Rodgers just wants his best friend.
Exactly. But sorry, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, back to Greg Roman. Yeah. So Ravens Greg Roman's no longer the offensive coordinator. They say it was a mutual parting of ways, as I said, but it seems like this is what they did with Wink Martindale as well. It's just like, all right, it looks worse if you get fired, so we're moving on. And at least in the case of Wink, it seems like he actually did want to move on. And Wink's style as a DC is very unique. Like, he doesn't let up in practice. There were a lot of reports really early in Giants training camp that Daniel Jones essentially couldn't complete a pass because Wink just like blitzes the hell out of you in practice. And I'm not sure if that was a philosophical difference, but at the very least, honestly, it's deserved for Greg Roman to be out, right? Given the inability to utilize the wide receiver position to make your offense a bit more multidimensional and not so focused on the run, it makes the Ravens a much less dangerous team. Even though when Lamar is healthy, I've said this all along, he is a very good pocket passer, and he has the arm to make any throw. And now the veteran experience and the smarts to see the field well. And so there needs to be an OC that is able to get guys open and utilize that if Lamar is to return. Because when Harbaugh says that Lamar is going to be involved in conversations to pick the OC, again, sometimes that's just like chum in the water to get a guy to be happy and return and maybe take a contract for a little bit less. But that latter part, I don't have any faith in happening. I could see Lamar just being like, let me go, and I'm going to go to free agency or tag and trade me to the Miami Dolphins where there's no state income tax, and I'll try to get my contract that way. But at the same time, like, if he's still asking for a fully guaranteed contract like Deshaun Watson wants or got, which was an insane circumstance, and apparently that's Lamar's ask, no one's giving him that at this point now that he's been injured the past 2 years at the end of the year. And I wish we said at the start of the year he should have taken that contract. But either way, good news by the Ravens to do this. Good move. And I'm hoping, I want to see Lamar with the Ravens. They're like PB&J. It's the perfect fit. The badass Ravens and badass Lamar Jackson.
And he's someone I would like to see like stay with one team. I also think it was like from him being drafted 30th and being one of the best quarterbacks out of that draft. It's just like I would love to see this work out for them.
Yeah.
And I also think
and Josh Allen from that draft.
Right. And I also think firing Roman makes it seem to me that Harbaugh is not more wedded to his vision or what he thought the vision should be for Lamar on offense, and is actually willing to be more flexible when it comes to that. Because what I was just going to say is in terms of kind of comparing certain things that I feel like have definitely more come into focus now that we are at this point in the season into the postseason than we were at the beginning of the season is personnel. Like, I can't really take personnel as an excuse anymore because of teams that I've seen like the Giants with an even worse receiving core, in my opinion, play so much better and play up to their potential so much more with a different coordinator and a different coaching staff and a different scheme. I think that is and same thing when you even compare it with it's the same thing with the Chargers offense. I just can't take that as an excuse anymore when you see teams with worse personnel play better.
Yeah.
It is scheme. It is figuring out what the best things that your players have at their disposal and putting them in those positions to succeed, and scheming up a pass in the flat to 305-pound Patrick Ricard every 5 plays is not a recipe for success.
No.
We're not playing football in the 50s.
Yeah, and,
like it's not sustainable with the talent that you have.
And
so
it
was the right move.
Do have an old school style to them that I appreciate, in the sense that Harbaugh, like, they will lead through their defense. They seem kind of always have as an organization, even though there were years where Flacco was putting up big points. And by the way, they dealt with a tough contract situation with Joe Flacco.
That's right.
And then he went out there and he won the Super Bowl.
Right. And he got paid big money.
Overpaid.
Yeah. Obviously, we see how that had panned out, 10 years later. But
right, but they got the Super Bowl, and he.
But Lamar is younger and better, also.
Of course.
So it's like that's the other good thing about it too.
And so, yeah, I mean, it just they need to work to his strength. So, and Harbaugh has the ability to be a great game planner. Really understands. He knows ball, right? And but he's not an offensive genius guy, right? He needs somebody to carry the load in that way. And there's just so many other. There's such a crop of young, talented, in the lab with a pen and a pad, OCs that.
But I think love to have the chance to work with Lamar Jackson.
Yeah. If this is not, and this is a big if this is not all just posturing and Lamar does return to Baltimore, which I remain skeptical of, but I'm more encouraged today with this news about Roman than I was yesterday.
And like I said on Monday, like just to be clear, like this is still for me the way I see it on Monday, in the sense that this is not me having little confidence in John Harbaugh, despite an incredibly anomalous, wild swing from the Tyler Huntley goal line QB sneak attempt to numerous very poor clock management decisions. The Ravens were still in this game. Mm-hmm. The Ravens were a pass through James Prochet's fingers from tying this game because of how well coached this team, despite their injuries, despite the lack of talent, how well coached this team is. I still have confidence in Mike Macdonald. I think they did the defensive coordinator. I think it was the right move to give Roquan Smith the money that he deserves as one of the best linebackers in the league. If they can just literally figure out the scheme that makes Lamar hum, this is still the Ravens that we've always known, like that find answers wherever they can. I just think Roman was the squeaky wheel, and they need to reset there.
Agreed. All right, shall we do our locks?
Hell yeah.
We got to get the ESVN
Stone Cold Lock of the Century all week.
Boom.
Yeah, that's Emma's chances of beating me bursting into flames.
Yeah, I am not feeling very confident right now, which means I will have a good week. ? She says without confidence. All right, so let me give you the lowdown on what happened last week. Bradley, 2-1. He got the Jags plus 2.5. They were underdogs. That was an interesting choice, even though they defeated the Chargers in LA. They were home underdogs. Okay, whatever.
Oh yeah, that pick hit, right? The Jags pick. I initially, for some reason, I forgot that the Jags were
underdog.
Yeah, so I literally was like, oh, that's crap. They did not even cover, but I'm pleased about that.
You missed on the under for Giants Vikings, which every team
every team hit the over. That was interesting. I was kind of expecting more of a rock fight with the Giants Vikings, but they exceeded those expectations.
The Vikings defense is that bad.
Right, exactly.
And then you had the Cowboys minus 2.5, which they easily covered. I went 0-3. The under for Chargers Jaguars, 47.5, did not hit. The Bengals did not win by 10 points. It was a 9.5 point spread, and the Buccaneers lost. And they lost by less than more than 2.5. So I did not cover at all. With that said, this is our record, and these are our picks for the divisional round, which is probably my favorite weekend of any NFL weekend, given the fact that there are, 2 games on each day, 4 games total. All of them are high quality. The stakes could not be higher. And normally I'd be like, I'd be even more excited than I am now. But now I'm just nervous about the Giants. Also, that auto corrected to a 0. Forget it. But
yeah, that's an O, guys.
I mean to say
for everyone watching, it's an O for over.
They do not. I guess Google Slides does not recognize over-unders. Anyway, let's begin, shall we? I am taking the Jacksonville Jaguars plus 8.5 in Kansas City. Now hear me out. I just think that's too large of a line.
I agree. I think it's a big line, and I think as much as I do think the Chiefs have some real matchup advantages against the Jaguars defense, I think I was saying this to you before the show. My biggest concern for Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars offense is if Chris Jones and the interior of the defensive line can get pressure. If he can elude that, I don't feel that uncomfortable with the secondary matchups with the receivers that the Jags have.
I just think so. The Jaguars lost by 10 in their first meetup. Now, I'm kind of contradicting myself here because at the same time, the Chiefs got a big lead in that game, I think 20-0, and the Jaguars came back. But at the same time, the Jaguars have shown a propensity for being able to come back from big leads. And I do think the Chiefs win this game, but I think they win it by a touchdown. So I'm taking that 1.5 points. We've been saying it all year. Chiefs play with their food. They're gonna be a little bit not rusty, but they've had a week's rest, and the Jaguars are riding a high and feeling themselves. And I just think Doug Peterson is going to go balls to the wall to make it as close as possible.
And like we see what he can do with his offense.
He does crazy shit, and only second to maybe Andy Reid doing
exactly.
Crazy shit.
Like it's another it's another Joker matchup, but it's two real Jokers
and two former awesome coaches for the Philadelphia Eagles who were unceremoniously fired, facing off in the AFC divisional round.
It's somehow an Eagles revenge game with the Eagles not playing.
Yeah, and also, I mean, that you can rip into the Eagles for that, but at the same time, they're doing great with Nick Sirianni.
Look where they are. They also have a first round bye, so no worries.
I will say that I considered the Giants plus 7.5, and I know I was really, really feeling myself
I was
on
too,
Tuesday.
but I couldn't pull the trigger.
Couldn't pull the trigger. Yeah, I mean, in terms of talent gap, that's the biggest talent gap differential in the whole weekend. So that was too difficult for me to do, and I just don't. I heard Jalen Hurts essentially saying that he's feeling really good and healthy, and so I was like, oh boy, maybe
can't do that.
Maybe not.
He's like, yeah, I'm squatting 600 pounds for 10 reps.
So that's what I'm going with. Jags plus 8.5.
Yeah, so for this game, kind of in a similar vein to your pick, I just didn't want to do the points for.
Yeah.
I'm taking over 53 points for the Jaguars Chiefs game, just because of what I was saying is that I do think there are matchup advantages for both offenses. Both the Jags and Chiefs offense against the Chiefs and Jags defenses. The Chiefs, I think this is what I was thinking was going to happen. I think is going to happen. I wasn't right at the time, but I think especially when there are even decent defensive units, like the Chiefs have a pretty great defensive front seven because of Chris Jones, how much pressure they can develop in the interior. The Jags have a few great upcoming pass rushers, Trayvon Walker, and also just run stuffers too. They have I've actually been pretty impressed with what they've been able to do with their rushers. Arden Key has been a pretty good player for them. My concern for the Jaguars, which is why I think the Chiefs might be able to rack up some points, is that they kind of need a guy who's going to be able to need a few guys who are going to be able to neutralize Travis Kelce over the middle. And so far, Devin Lloyd and Chad Muma, who are kind of taking that second linebacker spot, they're both rookies, and they both have been. Lloyd had a pretty promising start to the season, but he's been subbing reps with Muma because he's been so unreliable. He can get burned in coverage. He can get confused by elaborate offensive schemes, and I don't think he's going to be able to really handle Travis Kelce in terms of tackling him.
Yeah, I think this will be a shootout. I mean, go on.
And then the other thing is. Foye Oluokun, who was one of their big signings of the offseason, he led the league in tackles, but it's not as if every single tackle he's making was for like a 10-yard loss.
Yeah, I don't care about tackles.
A 6-yard loss, So I just think that the Chiefs know how to exploit mismatches on offense, and I think that's going to be the area of the field that they're going to spam until the Jaguars try their absolute hardest to mask that. And while I think the Chiefs honestly have their secondary, I genuinely I have been less concerned with than I have been in the past. L'Jarius Sneed is a really good corner and has been for some time. I just think there is a chance with Doug Peterson at the helm to kind of make these guys make mistakes and make these guys really communicate with one another. And I think if there's even a slight mishap in the communication, because it's not as if Steve Spagnuolo plays a simple defense. He doesn't. He's always switching shit up. So,
but to buttress your point, he's also very over aggressive. So
and
maybe they can take advantage.
He's blitz happy. He likes to show a lot and then mix things up. So like, I'm just thinking if Peterson is able to either predict that or preempt that, he will be able to get some over with Trevor Lawrence. If we get second half Trevor Lawrence again.
Oh, yeah.
I think there's just going to be a lot of points to be had here.
I agree. I like the over in that game, too. We have the same pick, actually.
For the second one.
Yeah, this might happen more frequently since we have less of a batch to choose from. But we're both going with the Bengals plus 5.5 in Buffalo. I am shocked that the line was this large.
I agree.
I actually think the Bengals will win this game. I'm gonna go that far because right now I
picked this line as well with the understanding that I think the Bengals will win.
I mean, what about the Bills has people confident?
This line to me is like the usage rate on this Bills team. This line is completely Josh Allen contingent. This is not about any other player on that team except Josh Allen.
But the betting public doesn't seem to understand that. They think Gabe Davis is like a great wide receiver too, and it's just like, bro, I mean, they have Stephon Diggs and that's it. Dawson Knox is a decent tight end,
and like you said with Gabe Davis, it's like Gabe Davis is his job is to be a straight line X receiver.
Yeah.
And he had a phenomenal second round game where he had those 4 touchdowns, but that hasn't been replicated consistently, that offensive performance or output since then. That was
he had a good game against the Dolphins, but and he had a touchdown, but trust me, I was following his as a fantasy manager.
Yeah, I had him and he was not helping me
following it, and you also just watch him come off the line of scrimmage and he's not fast. Like the besides Daniel Jones in this playoff matchup, by far the Bills have the least talent at wide receiver, excluding their wide receiver one.
And I'm taking this
the least amount of depth. They're signing Cole Beasley off the street, who was with the Buccaneers before this,
and requiring him to do a lot.
Yes,
he's one of their primary slot options.
And the problem is that Josh Allen is not playing fully like himself right now. I mean, they might have been messing around with the Dolphins. Maybe that's what this line reflects. But Josh Allen's elbow is not going to be a fix until the offseason, it seems like. And he's been making a lot of mistakes because he has to do too much. This is not even on him. I love Josh Allen.
No. It's because
it's on the team asking him to do too much. And Ken Dorsey is not Brian Daboll. And the offense is not the same in terms of creativity and setting him up for success.
The Dolphins also, I think, to their credit, were doing exactly what I think Lou Anarumo's side will do more effectively.
Yeah.
Which is muck things up and create the perception, whether warranted or not, of pressure enough to where Josh Allen will go. Because listen, we were talking about risk aversion earlier with quarterbacks. Josh Allen is the opposite. Josh Allen is ballsy personified.
Yeah,
when he
which
thinks,
I love.
Exactly, it makes him one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league, but it also makes him one of the most inclined to boom or bust plays.
Yeah.
If he feels, the pocket is collapsing around me, my line is not picking me up, I'm going to break the glass in case of emergency, scramble, or try and throw up a bomb. And that's what he does when he feels that he is at risk of being sacked or at risk of losing a lot of ground on the field. That works sometimes. But there are also times where it leads to negative plays. Mm-hmm. That's the difference with him and Mahomes. Mahomes doesn't really lead to a whole lot of negative plays.
Yeah.
He's very slippery. He doesn't get sacked a whole lot. Allen can get sacked. Allen can get into positions where the ball is not secure.
Yeah.
And I think the Bengals, with who they have up front and also with their ability to most likely be able to blanket some of these receivers, I just think that Allen is going to have a tougher day at the office than Joe Burrow, even in spite of the offensive line woes that Burrow has had due to injury. But I at the end of the day, I'm still trusting Joe Burrow's connections to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Hayden Hurst over
Josh Allen,
Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis,
yeah.
Cole Beasley off the street, rookie Khalil Shakir, James Cook and Devin Singletary in the run game. If I'm looking at those personnel on paper, I always know who I'm taking.
Yeah, and I just think that the public also overestimates the ability of the pass rush to get home for the Bills, because there's a reason that they signed Von Miller to that contract, who's no longer able to play. He's out for the year.
And the rushing attack has been neutralized as a result.
It's because they were concerned about the pass rush.
Absolutely.
And they should be. They're also undersized when it comes to their pass rushers. Ed Oliver's been playing better, but on the edge, like what's Greg Rousseau's stat line been? Do you know?
No, I actually, and I think, and listen, he's an explosive, super rangy, good athlete, but I think he is. I also don't. I'm not. I would have to look at his usage rate and how many sacks he was able to get, or quarterback pressures, hurries. I just think I would be more confident in the line's ability to get home, even with the depleted Bengals line, if there was a guy like Von Miller there to stabilize the line. Yeah, and like I've been saying all year, it's like Matt Milano has been playing really, really well. Jordan Poyer still, even in spite of injury, bad luck, has been playing really well. But it's a huge loss to not have Von Miller and Micah Hyde in this defense.
Yep. And
it'll show up in the playoffs. I'm confident that I could be totally wrong. They could really surprise me on Saturday or Sunday. But win
against the Bengals by a touchdown. Joe Burrow is 31-11 against the spread in his career when he is not favored by a touchdown or more. I'm banking. Look, we asked this question earlier. Who would you start a franchise with, Joe Burrow or Josh Allen, if you were to take them today? I think we agreed on Josh Allen. Right now, Joe Burrow is like on another level with his brain. It's just
I think control. The big it's Joe Burrow. Burrow has the processing speed, and he's also underratedly, he himself is strong.
Yeah, he's a good athlete. He doesn't have a big arm like Mahomes or Allen.
Right, he doesn't have the arm strength like those guys, but he can evade pressure. He can absorb contact. He's had to his whole freaking career.
It's like Peyton Manning versus Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly.
And I mean, I'm thinking maybe Tom Brady, but
I would say I think that's not an unfair comparison, because Allen has the creativity and he has the cannon to go with it.
Yeah. I will also say I heard Rich Eisen a few weeks ago did an interview with Josh Allen, and he said, "What's it like, because when a few years ago it was Brady, Manning, or Big Ben in the playoffs competing for a Super Bowl out of the AFC every time, and now it's you, Mahomes, and talking to Josh Allen, Mahomes and Burrow, and I thought, wow, that's true, and I think." Of the skill sets, Burrow is most like Peyton Manning.
I think the longevity is there because of that. For Burrow, I see a long future for him as the franchise guy in Cincinnati because of the smarts and the way he plays.
They better pay that guy.
Oh, I think they will.
That's why they finally put a brand on the stadium there.
Or Joe Shiesty will be Joe Jets, Joe Broadway.
Oh my God. Keep dreaming. All right, this is my final pick. I'm taking the over on Cowboys 49ers. Maybe I'm missing something, but I found this to be low given the fact that every damn game went over last week. And also the 49ers they've scored 30 points in 6 of their last 7 matchups. And
yeah, honestly
the Cowboys defense is overrated.
From the Niners alone, I can see this pick only because the Niners have been basically running clinics on every defense they've faced.
Yes.
They haven't really had like a super bad offensive performance in the last, I would say, 5 or 6 weeks since Purdy has started playing quarterback for them.
And because even though Dak Prescott played really well last game, I could see he's been throwing interceptions. I could see some defensive touchdowns in this game as well.
Because this is like I've been saying, this is a bloodthirsty, cerebral, violent defense. And I'm saying that with love. I love every single freaking player on this 49ers defense. They're one of my favorite units to watch.
Well, that's why probably you have the Niners minus 3.5 here.
Oh yeah, I for me it was like I kind of thought maybe I could do like a kind of like hot take pick and take the Cowboys here, but I just think I'm keeping this one simple. I just think that
The half point scares me, but I agree that the Niners are going to win the game.
Really think at this point, even with Brock Purdy behind center, I think it's the testament to how good this team is that I don't think it matters.
Mm-hmm.
I think I genuinely, even with the Eagles, and we haven't even seen them play yet, even with the Chiefs, we haven't even seen them play yet. I think the Niners are the best team in the league right now.
Oh my gosh!
I think they are the best team in these playoffs.
If this is Niners Eagles NFC Championship game, which I do think it will be, I'm taking the 49ers. I think.
I agree. I think at this point, just because the way the line is playing, especially even the interior of the offensive line, not just Trent Williams, not just Mike McGlinchey, like Daniel Brunskill and other guys in that line are playing so much better. Purdy is doing it just enough to get the ball to the right guys, and the defense is just playing as formidably as they've been playing all year.
Oh yeah.
So I'm just really confident in this 49ers team, and I don't think, even with how well the Cowboys played against the Bucs, this is a different defense.
Yep.
This is a different defensive unit than the Bucs defense.
All right. So what are our picks for the weekend? Let's go.
Yeah. All right. So how do we?
Let's start in chronological order.
What's the chronological order here?
Jaguars Chiefs are 4:30 on NBC, and I am going to take the Chiefs to win by a touchdown. I believe I will take them 31-24. How about that? I'll copy and paste the Giants' winning score over the Vikings onto the Jaguars-Chiefs game. 31-24 for me, and that has them going over.
I will say 34-31 Chiefs.
34-31. Wow. All right, so you definitely think it's going to be pretty close. Look, Trevor Lawrence, he's playing out of his mind, and this is a way to cement that.
I think if the Jags can get literally one turnover, it'll be very close.
I hope they do.
Whether it's a fumble, whether it's a special teams mishap, whether it's a Mahomes, anything. I think that'll keep it close.
Yeah, because if the Jaguars fall behind, this is clearly the least interesting game of the weekend, honestly. But I have faith that Peterson's going to get his guys ready.
I agree.
Giants Eagles. I'm going to go 23-20 Eagles. I can write it down, Bradley. You don't need to. Yeah. I mean, you're being a good producer. I'm just.
I am going to say 34-24 Eagles.
30. So you think that the Eagles cover?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a lot of points for the Giants defense to give up, but they gave up a ton in the first matchup. I just think the Giants are playing a lot better.
I agree, and they're healthier, but I guess this pick is for me as being like, this would be the score that I would think the Eagles would score, like on offense, or if there's anything else in terms of scoring, if they're playing the way I think they're going to be playing.
Yeah.
But if I'm wrong, then I'll also be like, okay, the Eagles actually maybe aren't as good as I'm thinking they are going into potentially playing the Niners.
It's just hard to say with them because their last 3 games meant nothing.
With Minshew, exactly.
I mean,
right.
with Minshew made them look terrible. You can't. It's hard to differentiate if it was Minshew.
And what Jalen Hurts are we getting?
Yeah, right.
Which one are we getting? It's an important
healthy,
question.
But they always say that, so it's like
he's not going to go out and say I feel like shit.
Yeah. Right. So, all right, Bengals Bills. We already kind of said what we were doing here. I'm gonna say Bengals 28, Bills 27.
I'm going to say Bengals 24, Bills 23.
Both going with 1-point games here. Yeah, that should have. I mean, I would say that should have been the primetime game, but at the same time, like, no chance in hell they're giving up the Cowboys 49ers game, which might break every record.
Exactly. Like it's
those are the
Romo's
two
gonna
of the 5 biggest fan bases in the country.
Romo's gonna have apoplexy.
Yeah,
like he's gonna lose his fucking mind.
Besides the Super Bowl, this might be the highest rated non-divisional playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean non-conference championship.
100%.
Besides, yes. Well, that's not really saying much, but point being, might be the highest rated divisional game ever.
Yeah.
There we go.
I agree.
And speaking of that, so what do you have for that game?
I think it's going to be Niners 30, Cowboys 20.
I said 30-27. All right, guys. What a fun weekend.
I'm so excited.
Coming up. All right. We will
Enjoy the games, everyone.
We will see
Pray
you
for
on...
us. Pray for Emma, actually. I don't need it.
Oh, give me... Damn him to hell is what you should be doing.
Spite him.
All right, guys. Appreciate you all. We will see you on Monday.
Bye, guys.